I'm here with Wilma Liebman, former member and chairman of the National Labor Relations Board in the United States. And my first question for you is, what's going on with this platform-based work stuff, and why is it important that we talk about it?
Thank you for having me. Well, let me just go right to why I think it's important, which is that, number one, it does present opportunities with some perils for work for people, but I look at it a slightly different way, which is that it has triggered a conversation in the United States that we really should have had for the past few decades about people who are working in different kind of work arrangements, alternative work arrangements, people who may be more precarious in their incomes, who are having to piece together lots of different gigs in order to make an income, many of whom are excluded from the protections of U.S. workplace laws, labor laws, and other laws because they don't technically come within the definition of an employee. So they are excluded, and of course in the United States, most benefits and protections are employment-based. So if they are not treated as employees, they're going to be missing those kind of benefits and protections. So I think what it has done, certainly Uber, has triggered a conversation in the last year that has gotten a lot of attention. Some people think it's gotten disproportionate attention to what it should have, given the numbers. There are far more people who are working in contracting out arrangements than there are for Uber. But nonetheless, I think better late than never that it has triggered a conversation.
So the next question that I would ask then is, what are the different ideas that you see being proposed as a response to these developments that maybe should have been proposed before Uber even existed, but are now being proposed as a response to that? And what do you see as the most promising approaches?
So I guess the way I would frame it is that we are having a broad future of work discussion. And I see three key components to that discussion. One is a question of whether people working in these arrangements are employees or independent contractors, whether there should be some third category created, or whether we should just reimagine the concept of employment entirely. So that's the first part. The second part would be, how are people to have access to benefits? And that is related to what I just said, the notion of employment. So should we de-link the notion of employment and social protection, social insurance, or are there other models? And I think that in the short run may be one of the most promising areas, because there are a lot of people talking about different ideas, different ways for providing benefits to people who are even independent contractors or self-employed. And I think there is some openness, even in the platform world, to that kind of experimentation. The third area, which is pretty fundamental also, is the question of restoring worker power. So in the US, of course, private sector unionization is down to under 7%. That, however, doesn't reflect the fact that in the last, I'd say, 3 years, there is clearly emerging and rising worker activism of all different sorts, including people who are excluded from the labor laws. The fight for 15 amongst fast food workers and other low-wage workers is the most prominent. So far, it has not necessarily resulted in union membership, but what it has resulted in is various cities and states around the country beginning to raise their minimum wage. We've had stagnant wages for at least 3 decades in the U.S. And we see all kind of efforts by workers to try to have a voice. The platform that you worked on, Turkopticon, is an example of the different kinds of ways that workers are trying to get power. It could be through information, could be through the notion of exit rather than actually voice at work. And then there's an experiment going on in the city of Seattle with an ordinance that was enacted to enable Uber-type drivers who are independent contractors to engage in collective bargaining. So there's a lot of experimentation and innovation going on in all these areas. I think those would be the 3 ways I would categorize the issues and the initiatives.
Thank you, Wilma.